Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra Mai, Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra Mai, Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Radha Shama Sundara, Radha Shama Sundaradi. Jaya Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundaradi. Jaya Radha Madana Mohan, Radha Madana Mohan Radhi. Jaya Radha Madana Mohan, Radha Madana Mohan Radhi. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Jaya Shri Radhe. Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Prabhupada, Gurudev, Prabhupada. Jom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stottra Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Maharaj ki. Jom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stottra Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj ki. नंदगुड़ी वैष्णव वृंद की, नमाचरदास ठाकुर की, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैधाधन शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की, हृदय गो प्रेमानंदे, all glories of Sambhava devotees, glories of Sambhava devotees, glories of Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudhiraye. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Nama Pangajanabhaya Nama Pangajamarine Nama Pangajanetraya Namaste Pangajangre. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lankayade Girim Yakribatamaham Mande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Shri Chaitanyamishwaram Paramananda Madhavam. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to Bhagavad Gita class, study class. After a somewhat long break, we are back. So we are on the 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga, and today's verses 20-23. We'll read the verses first. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevayam yata chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyadi sugamatyandigam yattat buddhigrahimadindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam sthidascharati tatvadaha yam labdva chaparam labham manyadenadhigam tadaha yasmin sido na dukkena napi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyoga yogam yoga samidam yatro paramade chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yata chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati sugamatyandriyam yattad buddhi grahimadindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam sthidaschaladi tattvadah yam labdva chaparam labham manyadenadhigam tadaha yasmin sidona dukkena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyoga yogam yoga samidam yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yata chaivatmanatmanam pasyanatmani tushyati sugamatyandigam yatta buddhigrahimadindriyam veti yatra chaivayam sthidascharati tattvadah yam labdva chaparam labham manyadenadhigam tada yasmin sidona dukkena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyoga yogam yoga samidam. Yes, Renuka Maji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yatro paramate chittam nirudam yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pasyanatmani tushyati sukam atyantikam yat buddhi
Yattat matyandiyam
yattat buddha graham atindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalati tattvataha yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stitato na dukkena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sanjitam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Right. Right. Good. Rekha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yatro Paramate Chittam Niruddham Yoga Sevaya. Yatra Chaivatmanatmanam Pashyanatmani Tushyati Sukam Atyantikam Yatta Buddhigrahyam Atindriyam Veti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalate tattvataha yam latva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkena guruna vichalayati tam vidya dukkam samyoga viyogam yoga samjnitaha. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Samidam. Yogam yoga samidam.
Yoga samjnitam.
Okay, right. Hare Krishna. Good. Right. Okay, Renuka Maji, you can read the translation.
The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashrakayam Chakshurunmeridam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthavidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagada Mahyam Dadadi Swapadantam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudavadagamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsta Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Pakanadagunadan Vidam Tam Sajeevam Sadvaidam Savadudam Parijana Saidam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sakana Lalida Shivishagan Vidamsa He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagalpade Govesha Goviga Kanda Radha Kanda Tude Tattaganjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabhanasude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadrubhascha Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nidhi Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Dadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Yatro paramade chittam niruddham yoga sevayam yata shaivatmanatmanam pasyanatmani tushyadi sugamatyandigam yatta buddhi grahyamadi indriyam veti yatra chaivayam sthidaschalati tattvadaha yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadiyam tada yasmin sidona dukkena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyogam viyogam yoga sapnidam. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In this joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and relishes the transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So yogi is now realizing himself. This is step-by-step, gradual process which Krishna explains how this yogi, which is described in the verses 7, 8, and 9, the qualities of a yogi who has achieved the self, who has realized the Paramatma, is given 7th. Jidatma Prashantatmya Paramatma Samahida. And some qualities are given in 8, 9 verses. How this person has achieved this is explained, in the process is explained in verses 10 from 32. So we have seen the external conditions which are required for practicing this yoga. You go to a lonely place, isolated place, a sacred place, sit down in one's own seat, which is not too high, not too low, and then concentrate you on your eyebrows, and concentrate on your mind, the Paramatma. Be strict follow brahmacharya, and so many other conditions, external and internal conditions which is required for practicing this yoga. And then what should be is the daily activities in terms of sleep and food. That is also given. And when he does that, he slowly becomes a steadfast. He enters a steadfast stage, which is given in 18 and 19 verses. Nispriha sarvagamebhyo yukta ityuchate tada. Then yathadibo nivadasto nengade somabhasmadam. Like a flame in a windless place, his mind becomes very, very steady. All the material hankerings, the mental fluctuations, agitations, everything is over, and he becomes situated very strongly and steadily. And the mental activities, that means basically the thoughts which are coming in your mind, have been effectively eradicated by this practice of yoga. Yatro paramade chittam niruddham. Niruddham means stopped. It's very, very difficult to stop the thought process, stream of thoughts that's flowing into your mind. More than 50,000 thoughts per day, it is calculated that the thoughts come to us, about 50,000 thoughts per day. So you can imagine how active the mind is in terms of thoughts, generating thoughts, indulging in thoughts. But this is completely eradicated, completely stopped by this yoga seva, by concentrating on the Paramatma and following the system, following the process, concentrating intensely, very, very intensely in the Paramatma from the 400 form of Krishna, which is Kshirodaka Vishnu, in his mind. And slowly the thoughts are brought to zero. And at that state, he is able to see the self. First, the senses are stopped, and then the mind activities also stopped. And both are stopped in an active state, because you are not sleeping, or it's not a swapna state or anything like that. It's not dreamlike state or magical state. It is a very active state by which, through the yoga practice, through the dhyana yoga, both the senses and the mind thoughts are stopped. And when that happens, when the mind is very, very, very silent, just like Ithadipa, when a very flame, which is unflickering flame in a windless place, that you'll be able to see the self, can realize the self, and rejoice the self. So there's an element of enjoyment, happiness, it says, Sukham Atyandigam. It's not a mere Sukha. Sukham Atyandigam, ultimate Sukha. Of course, the higher pleasure, happiness, when you realize Paramatma, and ultimately when you realize Bhagavan, the higher state. But this is first stage when you are realizing this Atma. It generates intense happiness, which can be understood only by purified mind, purified intelligence, and purified senses. Because everything, senses, mind, and intelligence are now completely purified, is freed from the contamination of the gunas. Previously, you were on many gunas, in combination of so many gunas, Satuguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So when you come out of the gunas, then all the stain of these gunas have been removed. Just like a gold, which is impure initially, when it is melted, all the impurities are removed. And when these impurities are removed, the gold shines like anything. It becomes very bright yellow, molten yellow, golden color will be there. So it's called a molten gold, which is very pure. Just like that. Although it may be said that a pure soil is now contaminated, but still, since it was in a contaminated state, surrounded in a contaminated state, it is said to be impure. Just like when we stay in a dirty place, public lavatory place, we feel that we become very impure. Although impurities may not have affected us, but the sins of foul smell also enters our nostrils. We feel that we have become very impure. Same way, the soul becomes impure by contact the material nature, basically represented by the three gunas. And when he's freed, when he is, cross over these gunas, they're able to overcome these gunas, then he realizes himself, and which is intense happiness is there. So we have to understand that this is because he is now in close contact with Paramatma also, happiness is generated. And happiness is one of these nature of the soul. Happiness, by nature, the soul is happy. Krishna is Anandamaya Abhyasat. And since we are fragmented portion of Krishna, a tiny fragment of Krishna, we are also Anandamaya. So, in other words, we call it Satchidananda, Satchit Anand. So, happiness is one of the transcendental qualities of the soul. The soul possesses that happiness. It is not that the soul is pure consciousness only, nothing else. Because in this verse, it is very clearly given, Sugam Atyandikam Yattad Buddhi Grahyam Atindriyam. So you cannot deny the happiness which is connected with the soul. Some school of thought, mainly the Jnana school, the Shankaracharya school, they say that they do not accept this transcendental pressure out of fear of geopartisan theory of oneness. There is nothing else, only Brahman is there. Brahman is there, only nothing else is there, Brahman is there. And Brahman is without any qualities, without any form, without anything. It's only pure consciousness only. So, when you say the knowledge is Brahman is full of knowledge, full of happiness, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma, you say that, then it is said that Brahman has got qualities, IQ has got some qualities, which they find it very difficult to reconcile with. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma, it is given. So the soul, pure soul, has got knowledge. The two types of knowledge. Ramanacharya describes this knowledge, say, knowledge of the self and knowledge other than the self. Knowledge of objects other than the self. So, when according to Shankaracharya school, any knowledge which changes constitution of this soul, and soul being Advaya is unchangeable, immeasurable, unchangeable. So, any element of knowledge, it alters its position. So, they say that knowledge is only product of Maya only. The soul is not connected with any activity. Soul is not connected with any knowledge. That is there. But now we understand in this verse, it is very kind. Sukham atyantikam. Sukham is there. Pleasure is there. Happiness is there. So Srila Prabhupada quotes from Patanjali Yoga. Patanjali is the father of his yoga system. And his Yoga Sutra is given Purushartha Shunyanam Gunanam Pradiprasavaha Kaivalyam Sarupa Pradishta Va Chidisaktiridi. So Purushartha, the four Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So Dharma, Artha and Kama is connected with matter, and Moksha is connected with a relief from matter. Detachment from matter is a Moksha state. And the person are they very, very, very concerned about Moksha, liberation. Yes, it is given finally, Tam Vidya Dukkha Samyoga Viyogam. Detachment from the material miseries is actually the yoga. That moksha, according to moksha, means detachment from material miseries. Just like that, that's over. But here it is Purushartha Shunyanam. It goes beyond this, beyond the moksha, and Kaivalyam means the Sarupa Pradishta Chidashakti. And the Kaivalya means the position of this Sarupa of Jivatma, which is Chidashakti, means happiness only. So beyond moksha, liberation, lies happiness. According to the Mayavadi philosophy, once you get liberated from these clutches of Maya, clutches of materialism, you become free and become liberated. They don't accept that there is another situation or there is another stage after this celebration, which is Anandamaya. Purushartha Shunyana means beyond this Purushartha Shunyanam. When you transcend this Purusha, all the four Purushas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, also Moksha also, when you transcend that Moksha, that is a Kaivalya state. It is not oneness. It is not mere liberation. Of course, Kaivalyam, when they said Kaivalyam means oneness only. According to Mayavadi philosophy, Kaivalyam means oneness. But according to Patanjali, Kaivalyam means it is a step towards this real position, Sarupa of Jivatma, which is full of bliss. Srimad Bhagavatam also states the same thing. Srimad Bhagavatam says in 2nd canto, 10th chapter, Tektva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. Tektva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. Abandoning the alien form. Anyatha means secondary form, alien to our real nature. So that is the body only. Swarupa means the real form of the soul. So there are two forms, secondary form, primary form, alien form, true form. We can say false form and true form. The temporary form, false form, secondary form is a body. Because now we are in material condition, we are attached to a body. And when you abandon that, we achieve this Swarupa form, which is also a form. It is not that we are entering to a different, a new experience. No, Swarupa means original form. That means we regain the original form. So there was a Swarupa before the attachment to material nature. Before coming to contact the material nature, there was an original form. And now when you are detached from this material nature, you regain that original form. So it says tektva anyatha rupam mukti hitva anyatha rupam, not tektva. Mukti means, so it's given, the definition of mukti is given like this. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. Abandoning the secondary form, getting situated in one's own real form. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes this process as Chedo Darpana Marjanam. When the self, this inner self, that chitta is purified. Chitta here is compared to a mirror which is full of dust. When the mirror is full of dust, you cannot see the mirror very clearly. You cannot see the objects which is reflected by the river, a mirror very nicely. When the dust is wiped out, then you can see the images very clearly. Same way, when the inner self, when this mind is full of dirty things, you will not be able to see the soul, see the self. So, Chedo Darpana Marjanam Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam. Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam. Bhava Maha material existence. It's compared to a called a torrential sea or a forest fire. Davagni. When that is extinguished, when in the agitations, the Davagni, the fire is compared to the agitations of the mind is compared to fire, and the fire is extinguished. And when the agitations come to zero or ceases, then you'll be able to see the self. So Nirvana is also same. Nirvana means after Nirvana, you really start your spiritual life. After Nirvana only, after liberation only, you start the real spiritual life. Now, what we are doing, or what we are exercising, is what we can call sadhana bhakti, which is in a bonded state. We are doing our regular devotional services. And if one is very meticulous in the discharge of devotional service, he is sure to progress very nicely. For that, you should have firm faith in scriptures. So that is required for any yoga practice, whether karma yoga, jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga. Firm faith in scriptures is required. So, by adopting any of these processes, if you are adopting a bhakti process, after executing nicely the devotion service, you are entering the next stage is raga bhakti, which means when you realize yourself, Brahma bhuya prasannatma na shochide na kankshadi samasarveshu bhudeshu mad bhakti labade param. So he receives higher bhakti, spontaneous love, which is possible only for a person who has received the state on the bhava stage or on the prema state, in liberated state. So it means after this liberation or cessation of the material activity, only the real happiness or real our spiritual life starts. Our original spiritual life was contaminated by material infection. And liberation from material liberation means does not mean that we are destroying ourselves. It's less like suppose we have a cancer or something like that. You ampute that portion of the body which is infected with cancer. Doesn't mean that you are destroying the body. So just because the soul was connected to matter for some time, doesn't mean that when that matter, this material contamination is removed, the soul's original position is also destroyed. No. So it regains the original position, which is full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. So this is real life. Pradishta, Swarupa Pradishta, Va Chitta Shakti. Chitta Shakti is the transcendental pressure, which here means Sugam Atyandiyam Yattat Buddhigrahim Atindiyam. When you reach that state, Veti Yatrana Chaivayam Sthitas Charadi Tattudaha. Then you do not deviate a millimeter from that. You do not deviate at all. Having reached that state, attained that state, one should be very careful that we don't stray away from this position. He's now shaken from that position. Unless we are firmly situated in that position of having attained that self-realization, then any platform is shakeable. Like you have some kind of material pressure you can derive from when you start the process of bhakti yoga, whatever it is. Some pressure will be there, which we sometimes mistake as transcendental pressure. But some material pressures are there. And then some people deliberately try to evoke this pressure by indulging on all those activities, sensual activities. So making use of his present position of a clean state. Suppose he has a tendency to enjoy these material things, then he'll be falling from that state. Or suppose there are Shiva Bhaktas, pseudo Shiva Bhaktas rather, who indulge in these narcotics because they say that Shiva is also as a smoker of grass. So they're trying to imitate Shiva. So there is another reason, there is another fall down. And then sometimes people are attracted to Ashtasiddhis. When the yoga practice, Dhyana yoga process is on, also Bhakti yoga also, any yoga, sometimes you attain some siddhis. We call so many Siddha Purushas, they show some magic. They are able to produce something like that. Because siddhi only, not that they may be fooling or anything like that. They may have attained some siddhis. And based on the siddhis, they're trying to exhibit these siddhis to manipulate the people or convince them or prove them that they are supernatural, superhuman beings. They are gods only. Because people are attracted by this kind of siddhis, producing gold, walking across water, getting elevated, and like some yogasanas, they elevate themselves. They sit in this padmasana, and then they slowly elevate, and they'll be floating this air. So these kind of feats, these Ashtasiddhi feats, they exhibit in the public. And they can get a name and fame and then wealth and get a lot of disciples also. So that means they are not that self-realized state. They are just below the self-realized state, and they indulge in that state, which is giving some kind of supernatural ability, some kind of happiness. But the person who has reached that state, the self-realized state, the who realizes self, he will now fall down. So there is yam labdva chaparan labam manyade nadhyam tada, because everybody is looking for pleasure. And when you feel that there is no other pleasure higher than this, then why should we go after that? So a Krishna conscious person who is very, very happy in executing devotion service, why should go after some other small pleasures? Why should he associate with people who are not in Krishna consciousness? Why should he have indulge in activities like reading newspapers, seeing television, going to picnics, mixing, interacting with people who have not all Krishna conscious? Why should you do that? Eating garbage food? No, a real Krishna conscious person is very happy internally, is very happy with the process which is doing, is continuously active. It's not that he's sitting down in one place and then meditating or something like that. No, he's always active. And since he's very active and coming to contact with so many people, sometimes the Rajogun and Tamogun may have effect on him, but Srila Prabhupada says Krishna will protect that person because he is engaged in preaching only, in doing spreading the Krishna consciousness. He may come into contact with Rajogun and all that, and maybe sometimes it may have some influence on him. But Krishna ensures that it doesn't fall down. Because he doesn't actually go for this Rajogun, but sometimes a situation or sometimes it may impact on him, but it never stays. Krishna's mercy is like that. He will come out of it and continue with the devotion service of preaching and all those things. Because he knows very clearly that there is no higher pleasure. If we are actually interested, because everybody is selfish, but the devotee knows that the real selfishness is attaining the Krishna Pada, getting eternal servitor of Krishna. So he will not be moved away from his goal, because he's highest. Yes means Chidona Dukkena, and suppose he attains that. Suppose anything happens, material things, accidents, sickness, natural calamities, loss of dear ones, many things can happen. But he's not shaken by that because he knows that these are things which he has to tolerate. Matas Pashestu Kaunteya Shidoshna Sugadukkada. He knows his own sensory perceptions. This called the so-called sensory pleasures and sorrows and pain. Everything is sensory pleasure only, which he has acquired due to his old karma, previous karma. So he's not bothered about the condition of his body, condition of his mind, because he knows that this is a big product of old karma bhala, which Krishna's mercy has been reduced. That is what the devotee thinks. Now, if it is there, because every devotee is also suffering, you cannot say that just because you are a devotee, physical problems will not be there, mental problems will not be. Every problem will be there, but he will not be deviated from his activities. Srila Prabhupada, once he was distributing the Back to Godhead magazine, he has started printing this Back to Godhead magazine. It's called BTG. I think from 1944 onwards. So while he wasn't staying in Vrindavan, he used to print the magazine himself, take the copies with him, and go to Delhi and other places and distribute these magazines. So one day when he was distributing these magazines in the road, he was attacked by a bull. He bled profusely He had to hospitalize, and it was very painful. But he tolerated that. Toleration means we have to understand what is toleration means. Toleration comes out of the understanding of the principles, the philosophy. When you understand these are pleasures and pains are there, temporary. Agama paino anityastam tidiksha subharada, you have to tolerate this. So he does not think that because of that I am a devotee, why I should suffer and all those feelings. Or sometimes, suppose you get some illness, then you ponder on that, what will happen if it is aggravates, what will be my situation, what will be the situation of persons who are dependent on me. Now, devotees does not think like that. At a gross level, maybe if there is pain, like so for example, tooth pain is there. Toothache is very, very painful. Sometimes you may cry also. Srila Prabhupada used to cry when he has got upset stomach problem and all that. He used to cry because his body is sensitive and he can feel the pain. But that is one way of toleration only. Srila Prabhupada never thought that, okay, because of this, I have to stop these activities. No. These problems with sickness and everything, accidents and all those things happen, but you go along with your activities without stoppage. That is why they say that Guru Nabi Navichalya De. Last class I was describing associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Vasa. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after he started the Sankirtan movement, every night they used to assemble. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates used to assemble in the house of Srivasa. Srivasa is one of the Panchatattva, associate of Srila Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the full night they used to do the Sankirtan, closing the doors. And they used to get so much pleasure, intense pleasure. So many people would gather and they'd be doing Sankirtan like anything. So one night, what happened was that Srivasa had a small boy, and that boy was very sick. And that one night, when the Sankirtan was going on, he left his body. So that was a backyard of house. In front, the Sankirtan was going. Then the Mataji people, they started crying, and immediately Srivasa came and said that, no, don't cry. Sankirtan is going on. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is doing Sankirtan. You should not cry. You just restrain yourself. Please be quiet. But somehow this mood percolated, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being he's God himself, he could understand something has gone wrong. He knows also what has gone wrong. Then he asked, why we are not getting so much pressure today from Sankirtan? Then they had to tell the truth. He said, Prabhu, this is the way this happened. In the backyard, Shiva's young son has expired. So immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went over to his boy and he asked him to wake up, and the boy came back. And then he spoke for some time regarding this philosophy of who is a father and all the mother and all that. Like in Chitraketu's incident also in Srimad Bhagavatam you have seen in 6th canto. Chitraketu's son, due to blessing of Narada Muni, he came to life for some time, and then Narada Muni was asking, see, your father and mother is there, why don't you speak to them? Why you are putting them in misery? Then the boy was asking, the Jiva was asking, whose father, which mother? So we have so many mothers and so many fathers during our lifetimes. The same way, this boy also spoke, and suddenly he left the body. But thing is that Srivasa, even this calamity of the highest, greatest calamity, he was self-composed. So this is a real Krishna conscious person. He is not to be shaken from his activity of preaching, come whatever. So this is actually this situation is actually liberation from the material consciousness or material miseries. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samhita. So by this process of yoga, the whole material miseries are brought down to zero, and you start your purified devotion life. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any clarification you need? Any questions? Right. Rekha Maji can render Narasimha Kirtan.
Namaste Narasimhaya Shaladalagadaine Hiranyakashi Kolasha Shilatankanakalaye Sona Simha Karato Nasimha Yato Yato Yamitato Nasimha Kare Nasimho Hidare Nasimha Narasimham Sharanam Prapade Savakara Kamalavare Kalpurashina Dalita Hiranyakashipo Tanubrinda Keshavaketa Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadish Jaya Nasimha Dev Jaya Nasimha Dev Jaya Nasimha Dev Jaya Nasimha Dev Jaya Narahari Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari 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 Bol Gambhiram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Sarvatomukam Narasimham Bhishanabhadram Mrityum Namamam Ukram Veeram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Sarvatomukam Narasimham Bhishanabhadram Mrityum Namamam Ukram Veeram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Sarvatomukam Narasimham Bhishanabhadram Mrityum Namamam Shri Narasimha Jai Narasimha Jai Jai Shri Narasimha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukta Pata Vrinda Shri Narasimha Jai Narasimha Jai Jai Shri Narasimha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukta Pata Vrinda.
Shuddha Bhakti Vinashaya Shri Narasimha Bhagavan ki
Jai.
Vaishnava Bhakti Shesh Prabhupada Maharaj ki
Jai.
Cha Kalpadru Vescha Vedanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Nandagudi Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Jai.
Namacharya Das Thakur ki
Jai.